Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your unbound hosts.
I am John.
Again, and I'm CC.
Again.
And when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Nothing more final than a season finale that also includes a series finale. So today we will discuss the final season of one of our long-running favorites, Fruits Basket. Will we get a happy ending, or will this story conclude in bitter tears for us as well as for the characters? Stay tuned to find out. Of course, we will also tell you our picks for best anime of the season, and boy is that a Sophie's Choice experience this time. But before all of that, we have a couple of mini reviews waiting for you in The Quick and the Dead. Again, right now, so don't pause the pod. We'll be right back. Alright, here we are in The Quick and the Dead again, and why do I say again? Because John and I already had recorded this, and then both of us realized that neither of us had pressed the record button, which has never happened on this show. We have lost recordings because one PC got trashed or something, or whatever, and one wasn't recorded, but two people not recording has not happened before. So this is fitting because the Fruits Basket is all about curses, so of course this episode is cursed.
Yeah.
Yippee.
No.
So, we had 3 really nice quick reviews of the things we're going to review again now, quickly. But these will be more condensed because we're not going to talk for like 20 minutes or however half an hour how long we talked about it. So let's get to it. John, what is your first quick review? Rapid shot, shotgun, quick fire, whatever it is. Gatling gun review.
Dragon goes house hunting. It's all about a dragon who gets kicked out of his house by his family. He tries to find a house with an elf who may or may not be a Dark Lord, but is actually a real estate agent. It's a short, sweet, breezy fantasy watch that kind of taps you on your shoulder, tries to remind you that it's also maybe an RPG world. It's got a lot of great characters. The setting is really well realized. The story is not 100% there, but it's definitely worth checking out if you want, just an easy fantasy watch. It's on Funimation now. Check it out.
All right, and my quick review is Star Wars Visions, which is on Disney Plus right now, and it's an anthology series handled by a bunch of different studios who do like these mini episodes in the Star Wars universe. Basically, the Star Wars franchise was thrown at them, and they could do whatever the fuck they wanted with it, and so they did. So we got big names like Production IG, like Studio Trigger, like Studio 4C, like Kinema Citrus, and they all do these different little stories in the Star Wars universe, and it's very entertaining, it's very diverse, it's very interesting, very many different influences. All the episodes look different from one another. You got one that is more CG from the people who made Ninja Batman. You have one that is classic Trigger stuff where 2 Sith twins fight it out in space, which is fucking awesome and looks amazing. And then you got some more down-to-earth stuff like The Village Bride, done by Kinema Citrus, also looks great and has more of like a sober, grounded feel to it. And yeah, cool stuff. If you like Star Wars, watch it. If you like anime, watch it. If you like both, definitely watch it. And if you're into anthology series like The Animatrix, like Halo Legends, like Batman Gotham Knight, like that weird fucking anthology series for Dante's Inferno, that old PlayStation 3 Xbox 360 game. If you like that kind of shit, then check it out. It's a lot of fun. John, your last quick review.
The World Ends With You is a pretty straightforward adaptation of the game that had some neat artistry stuff going on with it, where they blended the 2D and the 3D elements decently well. You said before that you thought the monster designs were a little bit but that's sort of a holdover from the game, so you take what you can get, I guess. It hits on all the beats of the story, of the story decently well. It does. Unfortunately, it's only a 13 episodes, so it doesn't have a ton of time to breathe. But if you want to just get the gist of the story, the show does it well. So then you can watch that. You get the hidden secret ending from Solo and Final Remix, which is cool. And then if you just want to jump straight into Neo, The World Ends With You after that, it is entirely possible to do that. Although do some reading in between about, I think it's called Another Day. It was an extra story that was added to Solo and Final Remix just to give you some context for Neo Tweely. But it's got the music it needs to, the character designs, I think they translate pretty well to the anime form.
They do.
And it is a anime adaptation of a video game, so always take it into consideration if you elect to watch over play. It's on Funimation. It's worth at least looking at a couple episodes worth.
All right, that's it for the quick reviews again. And now we're finally getting to our big review this episode.
When did we turn into Yahtzee from zero punctuation?
You know,
I'm sorry.
Desperate times, desperate. No, we are not British enough. Oh God, you never want to experience a German doing a fucking British accent. Anyway, so we gotta stop with the punctuation and get over to our final review, which is the final season, Fruits Basket. It's been a while since Fruits Basket, since we reviewed the second season of that show. And yeah, I expected this final season to have, again, 24 or 26 episodes. I don't remember how many the previous seasons had, but it were two core seasons. But this only got one core. And so it's like, okay, are we gonna feel that in the pacing? And I definitely think we felt that, because that show moved along very briskly. John, did you feel the same?
I mean, I guess a little bit. You know, not being familiar with the original manga, I couldn't definitively say. Usually looking up manga chapters is easy because a lot of anime studios just like to title episodes of their show after the chapters, and this was a case where they didn't. So yeah, I had trouble kind of lining things up. Yeah,
I mean, definitely in the beginning I didn't feel like it, but the further the show progressed, I felt like we jumped between a lot of locations. Just in terms of, it didn't feel as organic as it did before. It was like, okay, now we're here, now we're here, now we're here. And I wonder if that would have been a bit better, quote unquote, you know, if we had a two-core show again, two-core season again. The reason why I start with something slightly negative about this season is because everything from now on will probably be gushing. Because the final season of Fruits Basket is fucking fantastic. I love this. I love this final season. There's so many reasons for it. And where did we leave things off, John, when we finished season 2?
Yeah, so the big main plot point of the second season was that Akito was secretly a woman all along, or not so secretly, depending on your point of view.
Yes, I mean, there were hints. You could have guessed that. But considering how loose the show plays with gender roles and everything, and gender identity, you know, it could have gone either way. But they definitely went for it. And that also makes you understand, and that starts to shed a bit of light on why she might have behaved the way she did in the previous season. Because up to that point, you're just wondering, what is his deal? Or, you know, later, what is her deal? Why is she the way she is? And when he's still a he, can't quite make sense of it. But, you know, then at that point, you're like, oh, this is someone who probably was forced into a role, even a gender role, that she didn't want. And that made her miserable. And yeah, that it's not all that brings her to do what she does and everything, but it's a big part of it, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely learn that's the driving force that kind of makes her want to make everyone around her feel equally miserable. Yeah. Even after Kureno breaks free of the curse somehow. Somehow.
We don't know how yet, at that point anyway, at the beginning of the season.
Right. He still stays by Akito's side, even though he doesn't need to.
Yeah, and keeps up the charade, which is problematic. And
yes,
it keeps that spiral going, and this fucking status quo of the old customs of the Soma household having just too much power over these characters' lives and everything, and ruining everyone they come in contact with. So
a spiral of self-destruction is definitely the best way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Word it.
And some being drawn into that without realizing it, that they could escape from it more easily, maybe. And this whole season is about moving past that and basically cutting ties with your old bonds, I guess, that imprison you and that shackle you and that hurt you and that keep you from moving on and evolving and becoming a person that you want to be and that you like and that you can respect. And that counts for pretty much not all of the characters. I mean, for some it comes more naturally, I guess. Later there's like a domino effect in the show where a bunch of curses are basically broken through one character doing a certain thing, I guess, or a couple of characters. But, for our main characters, it's just like, this is what happens. This is what this season is about. It's like how to grow into their own, to become the characters. And the building blocks for that have been laid, like, from the first season on, when Toru came into these characters' lives, which was kind of the play of one of our main characters, I guess, Shigure, which we now know at this point. Because at the beginning of this season, we can assume maybe what his game plan is, but it's not spelled out yet. In fact, at the beginning of the season, you're wondering, is Shigure a bad guy in this? Is he like, is he like the asshole here? Because he kind of behaves really shitty towards Akito at a certain point. Like, he told Akito that he loves her more than anything when they were kids. But then she eventually slept with Kurono because she thought that was her right as the head of the Somas. And she could just do with every one of them what she wanted. At least with the Zodiacs. Which was probably, which was, as we later learned, kind of taught to her by her shitty mom in a way. Or, not really by her mom. I would say this is kind of like the thing that was impressed on her by the way the Soma household works. Because everything is kind of for her. And she's, quote unquote, the god of this household. So since she had other problems, this is how she compensated that. And was like, okay, this is all for me anyway. And I can do what I want. So she did that. And since apparently Shigure really loved her, he then, as revenge, slept with her mom to hurt Akito for hurting him first. And since then, he seems to have gone out of his way to emotionally torture Akito every chance he can get.
That's a real roundabout way of trying to get what you want, bro.
Yeah, like he says he doesn't remember one of their most important moments together. He intentionally gives her the idea that he's flirting with other women, his editor, for example. He makes fun of her for looking manly. He belittles her. In their scene together in episode 2, he comes across as a hyper-possessive asshole who wants Akito to crawl back to him, grovel in the dirt, and beg for forgiveness.
Doesn't he mention something about kicking her until she's soft?
Yeah, something like that. Some
Which
really
is like,
fucked
ooh.
up shit. Yeah. But even then, I was like, okay, he might be doing this to make her choose him instead of her life as the head of the Soma, so she can finally rid herself of her literal cursed life, and they get happily ever after together because she is his one true love. And at that point, I didn't know what it was yet. My hunch was right, but yeah, at that moment, it felt like he was doing that to just hurt her out of a desire for revenge. And that was really dark and really fucked. And even then, if his motivations, which later turn out to be kind of good, in a way anyway.
The ends don't always justify the means.
No. It's a really... I mean, he wanted to wake her up, but there were better ways to do this. So...
Yeah.
And I mean, you get a feeling that he experienced a lot of shit when, living in the Soma household and with Akito and everything. And he seems to have hated the whole Soma family and probably himself the most. Like, he says that every Soma is disgusting and a monster several times. And I think he includes himself in that. Probably also because of how he behaved towards Akito. But also because he hates the family because what they made Akito into. And there's such a lot of hatred and self-hatred going on with him. And that's how all that shit spirals kind of out of control. But his endgame apparently as we later learn, seemed to be to get Akito to a point where she could break free from the oppressive rules and everything. And as we suspected in the earlier seasons, one of those tools that he wants to do that with is Toru, because she kind of pulls a bunch of the Zodiacs away from Akito's grasp and brings so much love into their life and so much warmth that they get more strength, more self-confidence, and the will to distance themselves from Akito and, escape from her grasp, or escape from her power over them, from her emotional abuse. And that happens kind of naturally. And I think the most prominent example of that would be probably Yuki, who was the most oppressed, I guess, by Akito, or most under her control in a way. And when he realizes that he's never gonna go back to Akito and everything, that's one of those key moments in the second season, I believe, where it's like, oh, okay, this is what this is all leading towards. Toru is the facilitator of giving all the Zodiacs their freedom just through her existence and the way she behaves and everything. Did you feel the same, John?
Every one of the Somas definitely has their own individual issues.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who to say who has it worse though, because Yuki and Kyo kind of have the same problem, but in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of in the opposite way.
Yeah.
They're polar opposite characters, at least in some respects.
Both of them, are trying to, in the end, reconnect with their families, and boy, does it go way better for one character than another. Mm-hmm. And even then, the better end of it still has quite the uphill battle to fight. Even after all of the events of season 2 with Yuki and his mother and Ayame, yeah. Even after Ayame swoops in like a beautiful bird, as I'm sure he would describe himself.
Absolutely.
To help out his little brother, his Ototo. Mm-hmm. There's still that hump to cross. And even later on, when Yuki, admits to Kyo that he kind of admired Kyo's strength to, even though, he had it real rough with his, his mother died and his father doesn't want anything to do with him anymore. The fact that he was still able to, try and move past that's, I think Yuki said that kind of helped give himself some strength as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the facilitator of that, again, is Toru, because she kind of brings those two characters together who were only fighting before that. Mm. Now they've grown close enough and can look past enough of their differences to actually, tell each other that. And there are some moments in that. And yeah, let's talk about one of those two. Let's talk about Yuki, who's definitely not a standard anime protagonist, because he actually realizes that one of the girls surrounding him is interested in him. That is Machi, which I was so rooting for.
Can you believe that?
Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. He actually realizes. I mean, we got the dance one with Kyo, but Yuki actually picks up on it and it's like, oh, okay, all right, I get it. Like there's this scene on a stair in the school in the second episode of the season, and it's very cute. I always feel sorry for him because he's just trying to belong and to help out, but everyone kind of rejects him in a friendly way because they are either too enamored with him or think he's above normal student work because, he's got this prince aura around him and everything. And they're trying to be nice but don't understand what he really wants, and that is to belong to a group, to be part of that, to be part of the normal life of everyone in that school and everything. He doesn't want to be above them. He wants to be together with them. And, there's some characters that gave him that in the second season, among them Kakeru. And his scenes with Yuki are fucking great. Like, they have become such good friends, which is also conveyed by how close Yuki allows himself to be physically to Kakeru. Like putting his arm on Kakeru's shoulder in that one scene that they have at the beginning of the season might seem insignificant as an isolated moment, But considering where Yuki started and how distant he was to his classmates, this emphasizes how much he has grown and how much more comfortable he is now with his life and who he is. You simply love to see it. If you have like accompanied that character through the story from the beginning, and you see how much of a progression he has made to a happier place for himself, and it's great. And considering where he started, that enables him to actually relate to Machi, who's interested in him, because she also has had a lot of experience with shitty parents who wanted her to be a certain way and didn't care about what she wanted at all, which has traumatized her to the point of being triggered by all things that are too neat and perfect. And that materializes itself in a bunch of different ways. Like her room is a mess. She likes to ruin freshly fallen snow by putting footprints all over it. And she throws neatly stacked chalk all over the place. And Yuki knows exactly what she needs. And if you want to see the most offhand baller move in this series, look no further than him reaching over and just breaking a single piece of chalk in a fresh box in two without even looking at it. Like, damn, what a smooth fucking criminal that man.
So good. Oh,
so fucking good. I loved that. I was clapping. But man, just a great small scene and really well done. And I loved it. And yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't take much.
No, absolutely. It just needs to be very well executed. And, sometimes, like you said, it's a real nice, conscious gesture, nice gesture towards another human being can mean the world to them, which it did to Machi. And yeah, that's one of the storylines that happens. And speaking of Yuki, they even give the captain of the Yuki fan club like this nice bittersweet send-off, I guess. One last interaction with him and everything, but her then going her own way and saying goodbye. So I really liked that as well. She was a fun side character, albeit not having gotten really that much of development or as much as other characters in the show. But yeah, it was really nice that was in there.
I mean, I feel like she got about as much as she needed.
Yeah, exactly. It was just enough. Yes. And yeah, since this is the third year, not only third season, but also the third year, I guess, everyone is graduating. Yeah, and before we move further on in the plot, one of things that I noticed was in this season, I think we had not seen the animal transformations anymore at that point. And we're not getting any, I think, after that. Yeah. Maybe because more and more people get rid of the curse or things have gotten so serious that it would be distracting to throw that brand of humor in there. But considering this was one of the main story gimmicks and heavily featured in the first and part of the second season, it's weird that it pretty much completely disappeared from the show at this point. Except as a plot device in the form of the curse itself, I guess. But in the first and second season, we had a lot of like, hey, you're cutesy animals doing cutesy things and also just being weird in the form of Hatsuharu, I guess. That was a cute, nice thing in this show. I wouldn't have mind to see that, a bit. But the season is so, I guess, dark and serious for most of its runtime. I mean, there's still humor in it a lot, but it's still like, okay, now we're getting serious. This is the finale. So things are going to come to a clash and there's going to be a lot of tears and everything. So maybe the animals wouldn't have fit in there. I don't know how you see that, John.
I mean, yeah, as far as using the animal transformations in the context of humor, yeah, it would have probably felt out of place this season. But I feel like maybe if it was really necessary to the plot, it could have been done, but it probably would have taken a lot of focus away from like any given at hand situation. But it's hard to see inside the author's head, yada yada, death of the author or whatever. But I do think this season was probably better for it, though.
Yeah, probably. It was just like something, okay, I guess. But again, it fits also the mood of the series because this is a lot about goodbyes and everything and cutting your ties, cutting your bonds, or moving on, starting a new life, what have you. And the animal things were part of that old life, and they have also let go of that. So I guess it fits the tone, it fits the story and everything. It just felt a bit abrupt because we had it last season, and then in this season, I think we don't get it at all. So it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, story-wise, one of the puppet masters, I guess, and one of the chaos conduits, Ren, Akito's mother, is responsible for raising Akito as a man. I think at that point she is introduced. The reasons were not clear yet. We get filled on that later. But what we see is that Ren asks Isuzu to steal something that, according to her own words, belongs to her, to steal that from Akito. And in turn for revealing to Isuzu the secret of how to break the curse. Which is an obvious lie. Ren doesn't know how to break the curse. And she just tells Isuzu that so she can get her hands on whatever is that Akito keeps that she wants. And also Ren is a bitch.
You're not wrong.
I mean, there are probably some reasons. I mean, there are some reasons, and I'll get to that, why she is the way she is. But also, she is a bitch. And yeah, Isuzu gets caught, obviously, and stuffed into a prison cell meant for the Zodiac Cat. And then Kurono frees her and gets her to a hospital and everything. So that's a small mini arc. And all of that coincides with a bunch of different characters realizing something about their relationship to Akito and then moving on to do something to grow and getting closer to letting go of whatever stranglehold Akito had on them. And I think one of the first that where you realize that is Hiro, who has done a lot of self-reflection since his little sister was born. And decides to turn things around in his world and how he behaves and everything. Like, he tells Haru the whole story about how Isuzu got previously attacked by Akito, thrown out of the window and everything because of her relationship to Haru. Which in itself is a nice scene because Hiro was always a little jerk. And now we know why. And his scene with Haru and Kisa is really heartwarming. And then Haru storms into Akito's room and almost punches her skull in. And considering how blasé Akito is about the whole matter, like she's saying, it's your fault for choosing her, I'm God, you're all supposed to love just me. You really want to see him do it in that moment. You really, really do. It's
a little bit.
But he doesn't. He realizes right on time that a bit of the blame also lies with him. So he settles on storming off and telling Akito to shut up and fuck off, which is just as satisfying. Especially since it only now dawns on her that she lost another one of the people she thinks she deserves through her own actions at that. And she looks thoroughly shocked that Haru is abandoning her, which shows how deep her delusions go and how much damage Ren and maybe her dad, we'll get to that, as well have done to her psyche. I mean, Fruits Basket is all about shitty parents, right? Pretty much all the shit that happens in this show, all the damage that is done in this show is done by parents to their kids. It's really like, hey, you treated your kid in a shitty way and now your kids are shitty. Or at least miserable and sad and everything. But there are very few parents in this show that are not assholes. I think I can count them on one hand, maybe.
Maybe like one or two fingers?
Maybe, yeah. So, Ren, I mean, Akito's dad isn't shitty, but he made a big mistake. We'll get to that. But yeah, that episode concludes with Haru picking up Isuzu, who was wandering around the town in a daze. And then he carries her back to the hospital, slung over his shoulder, which is a funny image. And he says that he might still be a dense kid in terms of often not getting a clue what troubles Isuzu, but he is now strong enough to carry her. And he tells her she can go as far as her own feet carry her, but if she needs him, he will carry her, and he won't abandon her, and she's not a burden. Which is super sweet, and exactly what Isuzu needs to hear, and an early happy end for these two. That was really uplifting. Like, in general, we have a kind of happy end to an important character relationship in every episode in this. At least starting from episode 4 or something. Well, except for Akito up to the very end, I guess, because she is losing more and more with every episode. All of it self-inflicted to a certain degree, of course, but we know where the true root of this behavior lies. So it's still kind of harrowing at a certain point to see her lose all that and being more and more distraught and losing her mind because of that, because her whole world is crumbling apart. And you can see that. You can see that in her face. You can see that in her erratic behavior, which becomes worse and worse. She was never the most stable person, but oh boy, is she losing her shit in this season. But yeah, that was a really nice scene, and always the back and forth, and Isuzu thinking that she was a burden to Haru and everything, and then him realizing what happened thanks to Hiro, and then telling her what she needs to hear to finally let herself go and rely on someone else, and letting him be hurt as well with her. And that is really strong scene, and I always like these two characters, and seeing them be happy together finally was just nice. It was just a really nice moment in the show. And our next character who gets a clue is Momiji, who has gone through a growth spurt between seasons in more ways than one. Holy shit.
He got a little bit of a glow up.
Yeah, he now be big boy. He went from forever child directly to young man between seasons. I don't know how that happened. No extra stops.
I mean, sometimes puberty just hits like a fucking truck.
Yeah, I guess. No acne though, apparently. But
good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Fuck. Still wearing that bunny backpack though, at least in the beginning.
I mean, sometimes you still gotta do you.
Absolutely. Stick with what you know. But yeah, he spurns Kyo on to not give up and let Toru just slip through his fingers. Otherwise, she might take up Momoji on his proposal. I don't know. Does he ask her to marry her? Oh, I don't know exactly what he proposes to her. But it's something like he teases to Kyo, hey, if you don't make the effort to get that girl, I'm gonna get that girl. He knows that this probably won't happen, because deep down he already knows that Kyo and Toru belong together, and that his love will stay an unrequited one. He also loves Toru, and not like Yuki in a kind of motherly sense, but just like Kyo in a love, romantic love sense. But yeah, we learned that his curse has been broken as well, suddenly and without big fanfare. He doesn't even know what the inciting moment was. And on the one hand, it scares him, because he has held on to this artificial bond with Akito and the other Zodiacs for so long that he was, afraid to let go and be completely alone in the world, which he kind of is, because he can't go back to his family because of, the memories being erased, of their memories being erased and everything. Which is also the reason why he displayed such a childlike demeanor and appearance for most of the show's runtime, contrary to his actual age. But through the things happening to him during the course of these 3 seasons, he has slowly grown more confident, more adult, and without noticing it, has quietly come into his own and emancipated himself from his family and Akito's tight grip on his fate. And when he confronts Akito with that, she, of course, lashes out like she always does and tells him that nobody wants him and that he will always be alone, which is horrible. Even though she only says it because she is more afraid than anyone to be alone. Of course, you get that at that point. But Momiji says, yeah, that might be the case right now once I leave, but that doesn't have to be my future. That doesn't have to be my entire life. Now that I'm rid of the curse, I can find my own family, my own happiness, and you have no say in that. You don't have any power over me anymore. And that's such a kick-ass liberating moment for a character that has really suffered a lot because of the curse and his family. And it's just great to see him so confident, literally a new man. And he also asks Akito, what about you? When will you leave all this behind? Because if you don't leave on your own terms and find your own happiness out there and try to desperately hold on to false bonds by abusing people, you will actually end up all alone, tied down by arbitrary family traditions. I'm putting words in Momoji's mouth here, but that's what he is getting at. And we know Shigure feels the same. All he apparently wants to do is to break this cursed cycle and stranglehold of the Soma family tradition and the curse. And he wants for Akito to leave her life of false entitlement and suffocating expectations and abuse behind and start something new, probably with him, which wasn't clear in the beginning of the show. But at that moment, when Momoji does this thing and, we got a few more scenes with Shigure, it becomes pretty clear that this is what he is intending to do. Yeah, how did you like these let's say these character revelations or emancipations? First Haru and Isuzu and then Momiji.
It was just so satisfying. I think that's the best. Everything. I mean, that's the word to use for pretty much this entire season, which is hard to build on after that. But every time, it got thrown back in Akito's face,
Hmm.
that's it. That's the moment. That's what you want to see. Everyone has lived under her thumb for so long, and now that everyone's breaking free, and it feels like, now their life can begin. And you really get that sense. You get that sense from a lot of the characters, but especially with Momiji being like, "You need to go home. You need to chill out. We'll talk. We will talk when you can keep your head together." It's like, wow,
Hmm.
holy shit, dude! You just straight said it.
Hmm. Like you said, it's super satisfying, and especially considering which character is doing this, right? Because
Right.
from the first season on, who's like, well, what is his deal, Momiji's deal? Like, behaving like a kid. Then we find out he's the same age as Toru, really. It's super weird. And also, why is he so fixated on still behaving like a child and everything? And then we slowly get filled in on that. And now finally him taking the steps, finding the courage to grow up and showing Akito that he has outgrown her. And, it's so good. It's so satisfying. And we got more stuff coming, but also more troubling stuff. Yeah, speaking of troubling, let's get back to Ren a bit, who still is a crazy obsessive bitch. But one can imagine her going insane and being fixated on her husband, Akira, so much in the shitty Soma household. And we see their backstory now in the story and how she got pulled into the Soma household, what kind of person Akira was, and how Akito was born and how she was treated and everything. Akira, on the other hand, he tried to show Ren that their relationship was something special by making their child someone special, which was a noble effort, but incredibly misguided, since it made Ren even more jealous, especially after he died, and gave Akito this false sense of entitlement, and also caused this sick game between Ren and Akito to get worse and worse and pull everyone else of the characters surrounding them into this void of misery, abuse, and control. Ren and Akito are the closest things we have to villains in this story, but they are also incredibly damaged people. I would say the real enemy in this story, the real arch nemesis, supervillain, what you want to call it, is the Soma legacy and system that has forced them into their shitty positions and made them believe they had to live a life in a certain way, and that was all that mattered. Like, it's a tragedy in every sense of the word, and you just want to punch the servants bickering with each other about whether Ren or Akito are at fault here, because he's only made things worse through the entirety of all this by sticking to the rules instead of really taking care of the people they were entrusted with. Fuck them.
Yeah.
They are horrible.
They're just enabling the cycle pretty much.
But then again, just like Kyoko says in the next episode, thinking in terms of good guys and bad guys, heroes or villains, is often too simple. It doesn't help you move forward. So this is also what the show wants to bring across. It's like a lot of shades of gray. There is no black and white here. And there's some people more damaged than others who try to ease a bit of their damage by also damaging other people. And that sadly is how a lot of people work in the real world. So, yeah. The culmination of that is Akito stabs Kureno. Yeah. When she has the last giant-ass crazy confrontation with Ren, I guess, she just blows a fucking fuse. And when Kureno tries to hold her back or whatever, she just stabs him in the back, I think. And looks like he might bleed out. We don't know.
I mean, things happen, and stabbing someone literally in the back. Kureno was lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, plot convenience and all that, but
I mean, the Soma family has good doctors. We know that, and
that's true.
Yeah.
But even though if you hit one of those vertebrae, man.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it could have gone really bad. So that is a horrifying scene. And I mean, we have talked about Kureno a bit in the beginning. He's the one who fills Toru in on kind of how the curse works, I guess, or that he is free of it. but why he wants to stay with Akito and everything. And he's the same as Toru. Like, he's putting the feelings of others first and shouldering all the baggage by himself. And Toru has been doing that from the beginning. And all her friends tell her, Saki, especially in this season, tells her that she can keep doing this because this approach eventually will break her. And it would make her friends more sad that she is broken into pieces mentally than any of their own problems. And Arisa agrees and says she won't let that happen or be the cause of it. So her friend's trying to stop her from keep on doing that. But just like Kuruno, she's a bit trapped in her own cycle of misery because she's just putting everyone's feelings before her own and keeps on smiling. And that is just as damaging. And, you know, in the beginning, Toru feels isolated because she ostensibly is one of the few people who knows the truth about Akito, and she doesn't know how to tell the other Zodiacs about it. Kyo, as usual, is the one who does the things that pull her out of her funk. But Toru can't admit to herself that Kyo has become the most important person in her life because she was, or is at this point, still terrified that the memory of her mom will fade away if she admits that to herself. So when her mom died, she promised herself that the memory of her mother will always have the most important place in her heart. And yeah, we have seen a lot of scenes hinting at that.
That works out.
Fantastically. She is riddled with guilt that her heart wants to give that space to someone else now. That's why she can't get proactive. That's why she is not doing everything she can to rid Kyo of the curse yet. And that's why she can't tell him that she loves him. And after Kagura, of all people, our sweet boar girl,
she just steps in and says, shit or get off the pot.
Yeah. Holy fuck, yeah. Boy, does she ever. She slaps some sense into her, and she does. And yeah, after that, Toru is at least able to tell Kyo about her difficult relationship to her dad and that she mimicked his manner of speech when he died, his super polite way of speaking. So she could be a better crutch/support for her mom, who fell completely apart when Toru's dad died. But with that comes an immense fear of loss and the self-imposed terror of disappointing her mom if she lets someone else in her life become her new pillar. And this is all very sad and depressing, and is luckily eased a bit by Kyo spurned on through the words of her grandfather, finally giving her a moment where she can just let herself be vulnerable and rely on him. But just when you think she has gained enough confidence to tell him how she feels about him, she looks at a picture of her mom, and her mom is gone, and she sees something like an imagined specter of her mom standing in Kyo's shadow, and she can't say the words anymore because her old fears well up. And the horror show is not over yet, because Kyo at this point takes a look at the old cap of Yuki that originally belonged to Kyo and that Toru kept after Yuki found her and brought her back to her mom when she was a little kid. And that triggers a suppressed memory in Kyo. And we see Kyoko, Toru's mom, lying on the street covered in blood. And we see an image of her bloody face telling Kyo that she will never forgive him. And the frame with her picture falls on the ground and shatters. And this is where episode 6 ends. And goddamn.
What an image to end on.
At that moment, I was like, why do I have to be right with my suspicions and theories in the worst possible cases? Because I linked you to this, I told you this in Discord. It was like, holy shit. I said this in our review of season 2. Where it's like, I don't remember quite. I remember, I'm pretty sure there was like a scene of, I don't know, of Kyo where we heard an accident or something, or a car crash or something, or Cat. I don't know. I have a bad feeling that he is somehow responsible for Toru's mom's death. And this is what I thought happened in this case. I was like, no, please don't let me be right with this shit. What the fuck? This is horrible. And I hope they would put a twist on it. And thankfully they did. But at that...
I was going to say, 'cause I had finished watching it before you, and you had connected the dots in some weird ways, and I was like,
Yeah. And you couldn't say anything. I was like, holy shit, please don't let that be true. Although it kind of works in the same way to some extent, at least for a while. Because
misdirection is a powerful tool.
Oh yeah, it worked for me. I was like, oh god, no, please, no, this is gonna think that's gonna tear them apart. Oh no, fuck, he is gonna feel so guilty now that he has remembered that. No, he killed her mom. But no, that's not exactly what happened. Thank God. So after that, we see a flashback to Kyo's childhood again, and we see that he got to know Kyoko, Toru's mom, and they connected because aside from his sensei, she was the only person that didn't throw indifference or hatred his way. But he was so used to protect only himself that when she was about to be hit by a car, he reached out to her but stopped short of grabbing her and pulling her out of harm's way because that might result into him turning into a cat and other people seeing him for the monster he was made to believe he is, but actually never was. And that instinct forced onto him by years of emotional abuse and losing his mom at an early age because she killed herself. So much trauma and so much emotional damage he had to learn to shield himself from somehow that it cost him one of the few people that cared about him and that he cared about. He hesitates and can't save Kyoko from getting hit by the car. In that way, his story mirrors Akito's a bit. And to live with his ever-growing self-hatred that got even worse when he let Kyoko die, he tried to find a villain he could instead focus his hate on just to be able to continue to go on somehow. And that villain was Yuki, the rat, the enemy of the cat, just as the legend of the Zodiac would have it. And Akito plays into that by promising him a place with the other Zodiacs if he beats Yuki in her stead, because she can't, because Yuki is so aloof, and thus forces him back to her. Or at least I assume that's what she hoped to get out of the deal at that point. But yeah, now we finally understand why Kyo behaved the way he did in the beginning, why he was so fixated on beating Yuki, why he was his mortal enemy, why he was so, blocking everything else, and why he was, aside from, his shitty childhood in all sense of the word, he was also so hesitant of getting close to people. And even when Toru proves once again that her love is unconditional and says she has to rebel against her mom if "I won't forgive you" were truly the last words she said to Kyo, which at this point you can guess they actually weren't. Memories are a tricky thing. Kyo still decides to run away instead of accepting her love and maybe eventually her forgiveness. It's what he was always best at. It's what he can rely on. It's what his warped instincts tell him is the reason he's still alive, even though he knows in his heart that that is not the truth.
The moment he says he's disappointed in her. Oh.
Yeah, it's so fucking harsh. Like, he can't do anything else but, stick to his own roots and run away because he's so afraid. He's so fucking afraid. And that almost robs him of the person he loves because that person falls off a cliff. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, so, man, just the whole flashback with Kyoko and everything, all that shit, when you think you finally is able to say the important words to Toru, when you finally think this is important, they can finally connect and can finally tell each other what they mean to each other. And then that flashback happens and the whole truth and everything gets so much worse. I was just floored and I was so worried and so on edge. John, how did you feel when all that shit happened? Drama!
The whole time. It was like, I just wanted to be like, you two need to, what are you doing? Why are you I know why you're doing this, but why are you doing this?
Yes, why are you doing this to me?
It's like, The frustrating part is they both know what they want, but trying to overcome the hurdles to get to that end point is the problem.
Yeah, and the most frustrating part is you understand why they behave this way. It's like, it's not like in other anime where it's just like misunderstandings and you're like, oh, these people don't actually have any real psychological hold-ups and it's just like they behaving like idiots. It's no, these people have gone through so much emotional baggage and have suffered so much in their young lives already and have tried to protect themselves emotionally so much that this is just really hard to do, and they make a lot of wrong choices and it frustrates you, but you can also see why they make these choices. There's all the things about Akito. I mean, but with these two, it's even sadder because you like these two characters. You spend a lot of time with them, and you had a lot of endearing scenes with them, especially with Toru, and of course also with Kyo, even though he can be a bit of a blockhead. But you see how much Toru means to him, and vice versa. And it's like, no, god damn, no, this is not what either of you want. Stop it,
There's a song by Rush called New World Man, and there's some lyrics in there that I think kind of mirror particularly what Kyo goes through. It's something along the lines of, he's got to make his own mistakes and learn to mend the mess he makes. He's old enough to know what's right and young enough not to choose it. He's noble enough to win the world, but weak enough to lose it.
Yeah,
and I think that's perfect. Pretty perfect.
Yes, thanks for pulling that out of your magic head. What the fuck?
It's just, listen, all of you out there, I'm a big Rush fan, so I listen to their stuff a lot.
Okay, hey, that's fine. That's totally fine. I don't think I've never consciously listened to a song of Rush before, but maybe I have unconsciously without knowing it was them. But yeah, I gotta listen to that song now. And yeah, that fits perfectly. Totally fits Kyo's character. Like I said, he almost loses Toru because of the way he acts, because Akito wants to stab Toru as well. Like I said, she has completely lost her fucking mind at this point and just wants to erase the people from her life who she feels betrayed her the most, I guess, and that she thinks are the reason why she is now almost all alone. And she's kind of right in that Toru is one of the reasons of that. It's just like, you deserve this, and this is kind of your own fault. Toru is just a catalyst who did this just by being a nice person and helping everyone and being not a obsessive asshole and everything and torturing her family and everything. So she is not to blame here. They come face to face, and Toru connects to Akito because she finally sees her for what she is at this moment, and reaches out to show her that she understands the fear of being left behind because she has gone through a similar thing and also had the burden of her mom's memory binding her to a life in stasis for so long. And she says like, there you are. There's like this moment where it's like, there you are. I finally see you. I finally see what your pain is. I finally see why you suffer and how you became the person that you are right now. And finally, I can hold on to something and try to drag you out of there. I finally understand you. And that's also a really cool moment. And yeah, just like Akito, Toru realizes she couldn't let go of her old bonds because she was afraid she wouldn't be able to form new ones. So she tells Akito, even if you get left behind, I can be a new pillar in your life. And she gets through to her. Akito is about to grab her hand, and then the cliff Toru was standing on crumbles under her. And Akito cries for help, and ultimately Yuki and Kyo rush to where Toru fell down, and I guess feeling Kyo's presence wakes Toru from her unconsciousness, at least for a while. I mean, she probably would have awakened anyway, but this way we get the nice look into her mind where she lets go of her mom's hand and decides to go with Kyo. Like, there's no reason to be afraid. Even if everything is bad right now, it's going to be good again, which is a very hopeful exclamation point on the whole thing and is rewarded with their first actual kiss, I guess, although she later doesn't remember it. And that would have kind of been the perfect way to end the episode. But we get a bit of aftermath with Akito, who is finally able to apologize to the people she hurt. First Kureno, and then at the end walking into Toru's room with probably the first earnest smile on her face in a long time. Maybe the first genuine smile ever in her terrible, terrible life. And that in itself was also really rewarding, which is weird considering how much hatred we have garnered towards Akito from the beginning of the show.
Yeah. I don't know if I ended up liking Akito after all this. But I feel like I can respect that she was able to turn herself around even just a little bit.
She's trying to make amends. Like, Ren doesn't do that. The other character, fucking household assholes of the Suma family don't do that. So at least she's trying to become a better person at this point.
I mean, I also respect that when she gathers up the other Zodiacs, she doesn't really apologize or ask for forgiveness, because I think she says something to the effect of that would feel like a hollow gesture after everything she's done.
I think she apologized, but like you said, yeah, she's not asking for forgiveness. It's like, yeah, I know I did something shitty, and I did that, and I'll try to make it better or make amends, and it's gonna take a long while, but if you give me the chance, in a way, it's not like she's outright begging for forgiveness, but she's trying to get to a better place and hopes, I guess, the others understand. And Kyo, at this point, hasn't visited Toru in the hospital and plans to run away again because he thinks all he can do is hurt Toru, that idiot. And, of course, Yuki is the one who literally smacks some sense into him. A lot of bitch slaps in this. Although I don't know if it was a bitch slap or he just punches his face and punches him around a bit in the house. But yeah, finally, those two say what they should have told each other ages ago, and what you mentioned in the beginning, that they envied each other for what they didn't have. Kyo wanted to be like Yuki because he was a beloved member of the Soma family and good at everything, and Yuki wanted to be like Kyo because he was not shackled to the expectations of the family and made friends in the real world very easily, among other things. We've talked about this in previous seasons, but aside from Kyo trying to find something he could blame for, well, everything in his life, these two being jealous of each other without knowing it has hung over their relationship from the very first episode. Now it's finally out in the open, and even though Yuki is now more mad than ever at Kyo, at least at that moment, they for the first time have reached a point of understanding where I can see, oh, these two might actually not beat each other up someday in the future. So that was also a really nice, fulfilling scene where it's just like, goddamn, finally these two understand each other. They finally know where each other came from and why they were at odds for so long and butting each other's heads in. And that was also, again, a really satisfying scene in its own right. And, like you said, there's so much stuff that is just satisfying in this season. So much stuff that has been built up for so long. And it's finally you get the conclusion you wanted to this, where it's like, finally, these two understand each other. Finally, these characters talk to each other. And finally, this is what happens. And finally, this will resolve in something good and a mutual understanding. And it's so rewarding. It's so good. It's just like it validates you enduring the harsher moments in the show, where it's just like, why couldn't you talk to each other, or what is wrong? Why there's so much hate between you two, and you were just frustrated with certain things of that. Now you understand where all of these characters came from, which is in itself very satisfying. But also, they finally took the steps to get somewhere better, and That's how a final season should be. Like bringing all these storylines to a satisfying, rewarding, and earned conclusion. All that character development, bring it to a point where everything feels like, oh, this is the logical conclusion to this. It makes all sense, and it feels super good. And Fruits Basket final season just does that constantly for so many characters. It's ridiculous. So yeah, after this thing with Yuki, Kyo finally confronts his shitty biological dad. And while I would have loved to see Kyo beat his face into a bloody mush. Him just telling his dad that he won't let himself put in prison because of the stupid family rules, and that he will live his own life, and his dad can live his own miserable little life and has to deal with that, makes more sense in regards to how far Kyo has come as a person, and is still pretty satisfying.
It feels like the logical conclusion to his story.
Yeah, appropriate in a thematic sense. A lot less satisfying than kicking his dad in the nuts, though, let's be honest.
I mean, yes. But I feel
that
like...
That fucker deserves that and more, you know it.
Yeah, I know, you're right. But I don't feel like it would have felt thematically appropriate if you went in there and be like, hey, Dad, fuck you.
Yeah, Kyo has outgrown his dad. He's become the bigger man. He's, he's like, no, I know what you did to me, and I'm just gonna let you go. Just move on, start a new life that makes me happy, and bye-bye, bitch. I mean, Fruits Basket is full of shitty parents, but that guy's definitely in the upper echelon of elder Soma shit stains. So, and just like Kyo finally emancipates himself from his dad, and the Zodiacs have emancipated from her, Akito finally now emancipates herself from the entire Soma household and leaves. At least in an emotional way, I guess. And her shitty caretaker whining, oh, you young kids have it so easy. You can just go and change your lives. I can't do that anymore. Shut up. Doesn't change Akito's mind either. Good. Could have said, bitch, you were young too once. But she says, all right, you can stay here, but I'll leave. Which was satisfying in its own right. And the good news don't end. Yuki finally goes for Machi. Thank fucking God. At that moment, he finally runs after her. Arisa and Kurono probably get a happy ending as well, at least for now. That's what it looks like anyway. And that gets emphasized later in the final episode, I guess. And Kyo tries to pick up Toru at the hospital, but she runs away from him.
That girl can run.
Yeah, she's really fast.
Yeah.
That was not a reaction Kyo expected when he appeared in front of the hospital. But yeah, she's just like, she doesn't know what to say. She's so flustered that he's there. Yeah, and then quickly after that, Kyo and Toru finally get to tell each other that they love each other. And it's as beautiful and rewarding as a moment as we could have hoped for after all their ordeals. But even more rewarding is when they hug and realize that just in this moment, the curse has been broken for all the Zodiacs, in fact. I'm especially happy for Ayame, who gets to be with his weird fetish mate.
Yeah, that...
Actually, if there's...
You, buddy.
Yeah, if there's anything I'd hold against this season, is there being not enough Ayame in it.
Yeah.
But, I'm happy that he got what he wanted. So,
yeah.
He's gonna live a happy life. I'm totally fine with that. That's good. That's nice to see. And we also finally get filled in on the origin of the curse. How the banquet came to be. And it's a beautiful microcosm of the whole show, I guess. Like this beautiful analogy to trying to hold on to bonds and the status quo instead of taking steps into a different, better life. Even though, a new life can be scary. And how relationships and bonds just... like life itself, are something fleeting that can and will end at some point, which is a scary reality to face, but that fact makes them and the experiences had in our limited time on Earth all the more precious and worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And it's just this beautiful tale, and the way episode 11 ends is by drawing the current day parallel to all our characters, and especially Kyo and Akito, is so well done and rewarding. And shit that just felt so good and was so well directed and executed. And yeah, I loved it. I loved that scene. I loved the whole thing where Toru and Kyo finally get to be together. He realizes that he has broken the curse and just pulls his bracelet apart. That thing that kept him from turning into a weird cat monster. And all of that just was so rewarding and so great and made me very emotional, and the music was great, and
man, I think I can count on one hand the amount of episodes that I didn't cry.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of tears in this final season, but good tears. More tears of joy than tears of sorrow. But yeah, and yeah, another reason to watch all the way through the end credits. Yet again, we mentioned it in our previous episode, but here as well, because in episode 11 we get a really good after credit scene that ends with Toru and Akito arm in arm. It's really nice, and I don't know if it feels earned for Akito necessarily, but it's not. It makes sense that Toru is the one doing that because of course she is the one extending her hand to that person that no one wanted to extend a hand to after a while, and how she behaved, and that her not doing that would be against her character. So, and she did it before. She is the one that pulled Akito out of there and was like, no, I'm gonna be your new friend. And that way you don't have to be afraid starting a new life because I'm already part of your new life. So if you leave everything else behind, you still have me. And it works. And, it's just a nice bookend to those two characters, even though they didn't have that much direct contact before, this season. But it feels like, this is the logical conclusion to this story arc. Mm-hmm. And and Yuki and Machi finally get together. Yay. And and thus, Yuki's curse is also broken. Of course, the red is the last one to go, as expected. Also, great end to that. Akito finally appears as a woman in front of everyone. And Shigure achieves his goal of finally pulling her back to him and making her his, even though she wants to stay around as the head of the family for a while longer, probably to initiate some change in the shitty Soma family hierarchy and customs. I don't know how I feel about those two getting together.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, it's the logical conclusion, because Shigure's machinations, he concorded to free Akito from a prison, are what kicked this whole story into motion, really. On the other hand, he is a manipulative, possessive man-child, and Akito is also a very manipulative, possessive woman-child, I guess.
Match made in heaven, question mark.
As well as being thoroughly psychologically damaged and broken to her core. So they might be birds of a feather, but I have serious doubts that this alone makes for a healthy relationship. So we won't see how that turns out. We don't get to see how that turns out, but I don't know if they're relationship material at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, if they truly love each other, and this is true love, a shoujo story, so I guess the message is true love conquers all. But with those two, it's just like, I can believe it for a lot of the other characters. For these two, there are a lot of trust issues that come with what they have experienced. And I don't know if they can get past that so quickly and really stay with each other without, constantly fighting and being abusive again with each other. So,
yeah, that would take a lot of time.
I mean, I guess I'm happy if it works out between those two, but I think that is fairy tale material. So, at least, both of them can move on in a way. But yeah, Kyo wants to leave for a dojo in a faraway town, at least for a while, because he wants to experience the world, since he is now finally able to live as a normal human. And he wants Toru to come with him. And she is saying yes. Because while saying goodbye to everyone she knows might be painful, saying goodbye to Kyo would be unbearable. And it's funny that Kyo is concerned at this point when she says yes, that she's gonna go with him. Because she said yes so quickly. And he says they will live a simple, poor life. Dude, the girl lived in a fucking tent, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's a problem.
She will manage. Relax. Goddamn. You've both been through worse. She can live in a small fucking one-room apartment. She will be totally fine with that.
I was gonna say, how long did she live on her own? There you go.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, they both say goodbye to the grave of Toru's mom, and Kyo promises, even though her mom might not be able to forgive him for not saving her, he will always protect Toru instead. And then we get a final flashback, both beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time, where we learn what Toru's mom was actually half thinking, half saying to Kyo while she was dying. And that's, if you don't protect her, I will never forgive you. which I expected to be the final revelation after we saw that initial twist, but it still hit me like a ton of bricks because it was so well staged and sad and emotional. Because even if she didn't intend to, just like Akito's father didn't intend to when he said the things he said to his daughter, Kyoko's words caused a lot of harm to Kyo.
Yeah.
But the scene is also wonderful and heartfelt because we know that Kyoko's wish came through regardless. Her daughter is happy and protected and loved, and that is all she ever wanted for her. And we see her getting reunited with her husband Katsuya in the afterlife in that vast ocean. And the music is swelling up and tears are welling up, and it was all so well done. It was a great scene. I loved it. I thought that was fantastic and was a really nice send-off for that character as well. And a nice final twist and a revelation and showing us against all odds and her kind of partially fucking it up for a while there for one of the characters.
Whoops.
Yeah, Kyo's true love for Toru conquered that shit as well, and against all odds. And her, like, Kyoko's biggest fear that, you know, nobody would be there for her daughter and nobody would be able to protect her is thus annulled, and she can live happily in the afterlife. And that's just, it was so good again. It made me so happy.
Everything about it just you know, feels good, man.
Yeah, it feels so damn good, and it makes you happy, and you're so happy for Kyo, you're so happy for Toru, you're so happy for Kyoko, you're so happy for everyone that they, you know, that are part of their life. I mean, Arisa and Saki, they are also happy and everything, and I mean, you know, they also have to let Toru go, but they're both very intent on telling Kyo, we wouldn't do this if we didn't believe that you could take off her. We know you love her, we know you can do this, and even though you're a giant idiot, which they say several times.
In so many words.
Yes. But yeah, they're like, okay, we can let our girl go because we know she is in good hands. And that's also very nice considering how much time we spent on those three characters and knowing how much they mean to each other. So these words ring true, and they're very emotionally resonant. And Kyo feels that, Kyo sees that and understands that. So he's like, yeah, I'll do my best. I promise. And yeah, it's really cool. Like, we get this really simple feel-good farewell episode. One look at all the characters we've gotten to know so well and spent so much time with. A few of my personal highlights were the scene I just mentioned. Then Shigeru's agent / editor being really happy that he finally finished his novel. Machi just brutally decking Kakeru. And of course, Ayame for just being his wonderful usual self, which is a couple of the highlights in that episode. And I had just this biggest fucking grin on my face through the entire final episode. It was just like, just smiling all the way through. My face hurt afterwards because I was smiling so much. But yeah, it was really nice. And the animosities between Kyo and Yuki seem to finally be a thing of the past as well. Mostly, they still like to take verbal jabs at each other, though. But yeah, you get to think, oh, okay, these finally get each other, and Yuki's also fine with Kyo taking Toru away. And Yuki finally has the courage to tell Toru that he is grateful for her being basically the mother to him he never had, and for helping him become a better, more content person, which is also, again, a beautiful scene. There's so many beautiful scenes in this season. It's ridiculous. All of them kind of perfect. And yeah, the final image of this season, of this show, of this series, is Kyo and Toru as grandpa and grandma, walking happily into the sunset, hand in hand, which is a perfect ending if I've ever seen one. We also see their granddaughter, who very much looks like Toru and, you know, her parents and everything. Of course, it would have been nice to see what happened to everyone else, but I'm fine that the show doesn't go overboard and leave some of it up to our imagination. And it's just nice to see, hey, here are two main characters. This is how they end up, and it's bliss and happiness. Made a family of their own that seems to be, just looking at it from the outside perspective, really happy. And they finally found a way to be happy together. and give more happiness to other people. And it's just, John, could you have imagined a better ending for this?
No.
Me neither.
This is the perfect ending. This is how exactly how it should have been.
This is how I hoped it would be. I could have never imagined it to be that fulfilling and exactly what I wanted, but it is. It's like, I think rarely do you get such a, if ever, such a fucking perfect ending in a way where you just walk out of the final episode and be like, man, that was everything I wanted it to be and more. And yeah, Fruits Basket gave us that and more. It was I couldn't be happier with this final season and the entire series, of course.
I was having to think about the show as a whole, and I kind of feel like this might be, again, whole death of the author thing, but I kind of feel like you can sort of map this story out in the different seasons across the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, don't you think?
Maybe, yeah.
Because, it starts off with the characters, not sure of what they want, or they're sort of directionless. They don't know what they're going for. Everybody's constantly mad about something, just constantly. Yes. Everybody. They're trying to figure each other out. Part of the bargaining stage is, quote unquote, negotiating with God. Well, hi, Akito. How are you doing? And that's definitely key. There's everybody's so sad and depressed too. And when you get to the last season, everybody's just, it's acceptance. Everybody's coming together. Everybody's figuring it out. And I think that sort of mirrors the arc of this show in maybe not perfectly, but in a lot of ways. I think it sort of matches up to what's going on with the story and with the characters' lives.
I can see that. Yeah. It's definitely overcoming these holdups and these, this bargaining stages and everything and getting out of your depressive funks and all that stuff. And yeah, I can see it. There are at least several characters that go through these stages in a way. And so yeah, makes sense to me. In general, just I think in hindsight, this show is just really well structured. Just the whole story where it just introduces us to a lot of the characters. I mean, some are more important than others, and we quickly realize that some of the Somas have like one episode. I even forgot they're celebrating with Shigure's editor at the ending when Shigure finally hands in his novel. And they get together, I think, but I forgot their name. So yeah, those are not in there. It's one episode maybe, aside from the last one. And there's some that are more important to the main plot than others. But you get the feeling that all of these characters played their parts, and all of these give you more insight into how the Soma family works, what damage Akito has done to all the people surrounding her over the time, and how each of these cope with that in a different way. And it's just really well done. I feel like it's a bit tropey, I guess. Maybe if you look at other shoujo stories or stuff like that, which I'm not super well versed in. But, maybe if you also look at reverse harem stuff and something, or otome shows, I feel like at the beginning of the show, there's a lot of queer baiting. There's a lot of, characters, when you don't know that, Akito is a woman yet, for example, you get the show makes you feel like, okay, a lot of these characters, a lot of these men are sleeping with each other, a lot of these, women might be, and it's just like, there's just that kind of disappears by the end of the show. It gets a very straight show where it's just like every guy gets kind of a girl, and that weirded me out a bit because the show seemed a bit more, let's say, open-minded in the beginning, or let's say a bit more liberal with that. But then again, Japan in general, I think there's some things that where these shows don't go too far. So it just plays a bit with that, and then later it's like, no, we're gonna stay. It still plays and still goes heavily into gender roles and everything and gender identity. But in terms of there are no actual gay characters in this show, are there? Did any one of them turn out to actually,
Not outwardly.
No, not outwardly.
I mean, this is also a manga from 1998 when the
Yeah.
world was a little less progressive. So,
Yeah. So for that, it's
you know,
probably a lot, and there's a lot of hint at that. You get the feeling like, hey, the three caballeros, what was it, Ayame, Shire, and Tori, were like, it's when they were in the student years, it looks like, hey, they were constantly banging or something. At least that's what the show makes it look in the beginning, and it's probably not what happened. So it's weird, but it's not like I don't feel it's like a dent in the show or it's to its detriment. It's just like, oh, okay, no, these were actually just all straight love stories, really, in the end. So, if you came for something else, maybe you might be disappointed with that. I'm totally not. I'm totally fine with that. I think it's great. Mm-hmm. And I think, most of these make sense and don't feel forced. The editor and, the other character we just talked about, whose name I can't remember.
Ritsu.
Ritsu, yeah, thank you. That's a bit like, okay, I mean, I think that was foreshadowed. I think that happened. They formed a connection in one episode, but it's kind of like, okay, it feels like, oh, we had to put that in there. And it's just, aside from that, but it doesn't, it's not like it bothers me or everything. It just was one of these things where it's like, okay, everyone in this episode is going to have a super happy ending because we're not going to leave you until you are super content and until you see that everyone is better off after this story. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can deal with, I love me a really happy ending as long as it makes sense. And this one makes sense in every regard and feels earned. For pretty much all of the characters. It doesn't feel like it's, I don't know, it's betraying anything that it set up earlier, really. It's just like it was playing around a bit with the idea, I guess, of certain characters maybe not being straight or anything. But it never really went so far that you would say, oh no, this is totally, the show made a fool of me or the show fucked with me or anything. So, yeah, I guess it was just something that just came to my mind. I was like, oh, okay, that was a bit weird that it went in the complete opposite direction by the end. But yeah, it's fun. It's just, the important part is that all of these character stories, all of that character development made sense. And yeah, it was definitely rewarding and satisfying to accompany these characters through their individual stories and through the entire plot of the show, of the series. And yeah, man, what a fucking show.
What a ride.
What a ride. Is this our first season long-running series that came to a definite conclusion or manga adaptation that we finished up? I don't remember.
It might be.
I think we had another one, but that... Oh, no, Shokugeki no Soma, Food Wars.
Right.
But that definitely didn't end as satisfying as Fruits Basket did.
No, it didn't. Boy.
Yeah. So this is the first...
ended after season 4.
Absolutely. So this is the first long-running adaptation that I can remember that we reviewed from beginning to end, and that ends on a really, really good note. Man, I don't have anything else to say, John. Do you? It's just watch it. It's on Crunchyroll, I believe, everywhere.
It's the sub is on Crunchyroll, the dub is on Funimation. Now that they're both owned by the same parent company, who knows? They might end up in the same place eventually.
Maybe.
There's also coming next year a sort of like an interstitial sort of thing called The Story of Kyoko and Katsuya.
Oh, a prequel then, I guess.
Not sure. Last I read, it was supposed to be like a one-off.
Yeah, makes sense.
Then I saw something about it being a series, and I'm not sure that sort of story needs a full series.
I mean, we don't need that story at all, really. It was elaborated enough on... I mean, we didn't really see much of Katsuya, but it was a story elaborated just enough on in this show that we know what that means to Toru's story.
Right.
So, I mean, you can always add to that, but then again, it feels like, did you just not include that in the actual show because you wanted to keep it at fucking 12 or 13 episodes and that wouldn't have fit in there? Because that's what it feels like kind of at the end of the show, where we go a bit fast. Not that it becomes bad or anything, but, it's noticeable. And maybe that was the reason?
No idea.
Maybe you can fit that in there somewhere and it makes sense at a certain point. We'll see. I'll watch it. I'll check it out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think with that, we're gonna end this gushing review, like I warned you. Fruits Basket overall is a fantastic heartfelt drama with a lot of funny moments and dark, gut-wrenching twists. And even if we got like the happiest of saccharine endings, it all feels earned and so well deserved for most of our characters. Mm-hmm. Yes, even Shoshiro and Akito. They at least deserve each other, the little sociopaths. I recommend this show to anyone, and I mean anyone. Please don't expect a cheap harem, or don't get scared away by the animal gimmick. Or if you're not into high school drama, it's like the animal gimmick is barely in the later parts of the show even, and the high school drama is kept to a minimum because all these characters are so well formed and all their psychological holdups and damage run deep, and it's not superficial. This is a deeply human, emotionally engaging story of loss, redemption, bonds, and love. And it's simply beautiful in all its facets. And horrible, but in a good way. So that is really engaging. If you're not giving Fruits Basket a chance, you are missing out.
What's wrong with you?
Exactly. And with that said, we got one more thing to do. Best of the season. John.
Yes.
This season.
Yes.
Holy fucking shit.
Yes.
What are we fucking gonna do with this season? Every show we reviewed was good. Every single one. What are we fucking gonna do, John?
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Everyone gets a car.
See you later. See you next time, everybody.
Pick your Wii's up at the door before you leave. What the fuck?
I feel like, okay, real talk, I feel like there's two really, really, really strong choices this season that's kind of stand above the rest, but that doesn't mean that any of the other stuff we reviewed is bad. Not even close. Not even close.
Not even remotely. That's the thing. Like, you could basically watch any of these shows from this season and get something good out of it. Something great even, depending on what you're looking for. And yeah, we had Back Arrow and Zombieland Saga, which were silly fun, the latter offering some genuinely great emotional, rewarding, and serious moments as well. I guess Zombieland Saga was also one of your close runner-ups.
Yeah. God damn. Fucking everybody's a runner-up this season.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, Zombieland Saga Revenge was so much better than I would have expected, and I just want season 3. Give me season 3, because there's obviously more story to tell. There's so many more things I want to know about the girls of friends, Shushu and Kotaro, and why are we reenacting Independence Day?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And yeah, I want a new season as well, if possible, with less CGI performances. Thank you.
Well,
Mappa, make it happen. That is the thing. Each of the runner-ups have like this small thing that bothered me about them, but it's so minuscule and it's so kind of insignificant in a way that in any other season they might also have been a serious contester for best of the season. So it's like, yeah, right now they're runner-ups maybe, but goddamn, everything that bothered me about them is so kind of like, I can't look over that. For Zombieland Saga Revenge, it's like, hey, shitty CG that bothered me, but everything else, the characters, the stories, and everything was great. Arrow.
I know you didn't like the CG, but it did get better as it went on.
It did. And a lot of people probably are not even remotely bothered by that, but this is a pet peeve of mine. So there you go, and know that.
I'm glad. I'm kind of glad for your sake. You haven't watched Love Live, because boy, in the original show, that CG is. You thought the CG bear in Golden Kamui was the thing?
Oh no!
But after moving forward, Love Live Sunshine, and after, they were like, "Hey, we need to do this like a lot better," and it was an exponential jump from Love Live to Sunshine, and then it's been like, you could tell it's been little tweaks after that, but those little tweaks go a long way. Like when we talked about Beastars, they kind of tweaked the character models, I feel like, a little bit in that show, but it helped. It helped so much.
Mm-hmm.
CG is growing pains, everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
If you need to do it, let Orange handle it. Boom, got him.
Yeah, got him. Well, we'll see what Mappa does in the next season. Maybe the CG will be better. Maybe there won't be as much in it. Who knows? We'll see. I hope we get one. And yeah, Back Arrow was fun. Was a bit shallow at points, maybe, but was just a fun popcorn cinema, I guess. Action story, Gurren Lagann wannabe with a lot of fun characters and one giant old asshole. And just super enjoyable and not as much, I guess, going on with with the characters as in the other shows we reviewed, which would probably be its little gripe, I guess. But then again, I didn't expect that from that story, and I got more from that show than I expected in terms of whatever it was doing. And yeah, Vivi did as well and was a really good emotional character stuff, and was also a neat sci-fi story. Even though the ending felt a bit lackluster, which would be the small dent there, it's just like...
Which, depending on how you feel about, the resolution of your stories, might be a little harder of a hump to walk over.
Yeah, I guess, but maybe some people also think that ending is satisfying and rewarding and makes total sense. But if you want to... It's unfair because I say like, oh, look at fucking Fruits Basket. This is how you do an ending. But then again, Fruits Basket, first of all, had source material. Second of all, had 3 fucking seasons to build up to this. So this is not a fair comparison. So
it's not. But if you have a show that's great up until the 11th hour, and it kind of makes you go, huh?
Yeah,
what?
It's
that can. There have been shows in the past. Like I can't pick one out of my head right now, but there have been some shows that I've gotten to the very end and I'm like, what? I'm sorry?
Yeah. There's some shows that don't know how to end things, and that's always a bummer. We had a very specific one that made me super mad. I don't remember now what it was. I mean Karakuri Circus made me all the way mad from beginning to end, but
going back to before, Jesus, Food Wars is a good example.
Food Wars is a very good example. Yeah, they fucked that up royally. So that was really where the whole ending pulls down that entire season. I mean, the final season was bad in general, but ending was really unsatisfying. It was like, what the fuck is this? And yeah, so Vivi compared to that was still a lot better. It was just like, oh no, everything that came before this was just better. So this feels a bit lackluster compared to that, because we know that you can do better. But it was just like, it was still okay. It was still an okay ending. It wasn't like it shit the bed. It was just like, that's all right. Could have done more with it, but it's fine. So yeah, it was still a good show and great show even in parts. And I watched 86, which was a gripping war story, which I really liked. We watched Dino Xenon, which had cool monster fights and characters dealing with regret in several surprising, thoughtful ways. That I thought was really cool, and Trigger did a really good job with that again. And I'm looking forward to the Gridman cross Dino Xenon movie. So yeah, I could have also in another season I could have picked that, because I picked Gridman in another season. So yeah, these were also really great. I mean, 86, I would want to know where it goes first before I put it on the pedestal. But what I saw in this season had me hooked, and I'm really looking forward to the next season starting soon. So I was like, yeah, okay, all right, this is great. Also, sure, a contender. I think the closest to our final 2 contestants, or the closest to being a possible, candidate for best of the season, was Nomad for me.
I forgot you watched that.
Yeah, it was a fantastic sports drama that, while again, just like in its first season, didn't have that much great boxing in it, provided some incredibly well done character stories and development, and a pretty damn satisfying resolution. This is probably the show, aside from Fruits Basket, with the most satisfying ending, because the other show is up for best of the season. I don't know if the ending is satisfying in a way, but it's also really mean in a way. So, this had I guess, from character standpoint and where the story went in the third and second season, Nomad has had also a very satisfying ending, and yeah, I would say also say it surpassed the first season of Megalobox in several ways. So, yeah, I definitely watch that if you're into that kind of stuff. Even though my review went on very long and was very monologue-y, but yeah, trust me, it's a great show. Yeah, it happens. We probably haven't mentioned that yet, but we're probably going to make some fixes to that in the next season. I've talked with John about this already. We might not, depending on what show it is and what there's to say about it, if we watch the show alone, we might at least not do full reviews of continued seasons anymore. Because that usually just turns into one of us just rattling down the plot and the other one not commenting on it while not having watched it. So that makes more sense to maybe make it more condensed, because if there's no feedback, that it's just like, I don't know, you can still say some interesting stuff about that, but you probably don't need to, one doesn't need to recount the whole plot to get the message across. For Fruits Basket, it makes sense. First of all, we watched it both, and it was just the conclusion to a really long-running show, and I wanted to detail all these character moments. And I left a lot of stuff out, but didn't go into full details on all the characters that appear in the season and what they all experience. It's just like focused on some of the Somas emancipated themselves and everything and breaking off their bonds and forming new ones. And I feel like we can do a bit of a better job at condensing down certain reviews, and that would probably the first step to that. We'll see how it works out. We're probably still gonna do, or I think that makes sense, full reviews if we want to of shows that we watched alone that are in their first season, because you can do more of a teaser thing with that. You can, get some stuff out of the way with the plot summary, with the cast and crew and everything, and that keeps things more interesting. But aside from that, we'll see. We'll see how we handle it in the coming seasons. I mean, for next season, most of the stuff we watched, both of us watched, and I think I got only one, and that is not a continued season review. So we'll see how it turns out. Anyway, yeah, but that was a tangent, just to let you know. But unless I forgot a show that only you watched, John, it didn't happen, I think, this season.
No, it didn't, actually.
That brings us to our final two contestants, Odd Taxi and Fruits Basket. And man, how to decide between these two shows?
How do you pick one over the other?
You can't! One a riveting crime story and wacky character drama. A stellar first outing of a new production crew that has me so fucking excited for what they'll do next. I can't fucking wait. The other, the spectacular tears of sorrow and joy-filled finale of a series that ran for 3 seasons, with all the heart-wrenching emotional twists and turns and punch-in-your-gut moments that you could hope for, and that ultimately ends in one of the most, like we just said, satisfying endings one could have dreamed of at the start of the show. Yeah, they're both so very fucking good and make me so happy. So, I don't know, John, how did you feel about those two shows?
They're both so fucking good, dude! I mean, here's the best thing about this. We can have our cake and eat it too.
Again, yes, we are once again, as we do, because we're a bunch of dirty cheaters. We're gonna pick both. One for John, one for me. But really, both of us choose both shows, because that's how we roll here on Anime Brain Freeze. We make our own fucking rules, so suck it, Anime Awards. You don't own this. We're laying down the law, and this is it.
Who did Crunchyroll? Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Who do you think you are? Also, please sponsor us.
No, it's not gonna happen, John. Forget it. They don't know we exist.
You're right.
Yeah, anyway, how could it be any other than those two shows? It's not possible. Like, I mean, if you want to give your 2 cents on both of these shows just before we leave this off, but it's clear it had to be these two. That's kind of why we started with the one show and ended the season with the other show, because they're the best shows this season. It's no contest, really. In any other season, the other shows had a legit chance to be best of the season, but not in this one.
I mean, if it were just Fruits Basket this season, or if it were just Odd Taxi this season, free. Free. It's a free choice. Even though all the other shows are great, it's a free How do you... It's free.
Yeah. I don't know. What did you like the most about Odd Taxi? What did you like the most about Fruits Basket? If you want to say something about that before we wrap this up for this season.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird that the two shows kind of have certain things in common? That they are both these dramas driven by these animal characters or these animal themed elements,
and also moving past trauma is a very important theme in both shows.
Yeah, except one is about family and the other is about maybe murder. And I think that's... I didn't really think about it until now, but yeah, there are some crazy parallels to draw there. Holy shit. Odd Taxi, I was just so initially unsure about, but every passing episode I was just like, I gotta know. I have to know. Is it next week yet? I need to know what happens next. So I was just gripped by that show so thoroughly from the first moment to the last. And I think that was the strength for me. And, Fruits Basket has that as well, but in a different way, because it's not so much a will they, won't they story as it is when the fuck are you going to story, And
yeah, exactly.
And the strength of that is you're in this long haul to get to that end point. And when you get there, it's like beautiful. It's great.
Yes, and not only for these two characters, for the two main characters, it's also for a bunch of the other characters, because there's so many lovely characters in this story that you just want to see get better and lead happier lives and, become the best person that they can be, and that makes them happy and everything. So, and we got all of that. We got all of that, and it was fucking great.
You just want to hug all of your children and tell them it's going to be all right, but then they turn into animals when you hug them?
I guess not, after the curse is broken, so it's after all gonna be all right.
That's true.
So yeah, that's it for this season for Anime Brain Freeze, but the next season is already around the corner. I don't know if any of the new shows already aired, but it's not far off. I think some of the final
couple may have.
The final episode of one of the shows we're watching tomorrow, I think, or aired today. So yeah, there's gonna be some shows are still finishing up. Some early ones have started already, but we're of course gonna wait until all the shows that we're interested in have aired at least 1 or 2 episodes, and then we're gonna record the next show and give you the sneak peek and our first review from summer. Whatever that might be, we don't know yet, but if you listen all through the credits and maybe listen to the teaser at the end, maybe you will find out. Anyway, that's it for Anime Brain Freeze for this season. Good night, everyone. See you next time.
So long.
And that is a wrap on the 119th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jack Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnimeBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
Take care, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
There is a new dragon in town.
But that's okay, because we can still be friends.